Welcome, everybody, to another episode of This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey. I am Bill Berg Jr., running the show tonight. With me this week is Del Scanlon and our special guest, Tom Shafranski, Assistant Director of the WIAA, and the man to talk to for all things hockey in the WIAA. Tom, welcome.
Thank you very much, Bill. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me, Del.
I just wanted to start. I wanted to rewind to last year. Hockey was the last sport that happened on the WIAA calendar for the 1920 school year. What was going on at the WIAA offices when everything hit and you just managed to squeak hockey in under the wire, I guess?
Yeah, it was quite a challenging time, Bill. I felt very, very fortunate to get hockey completed. We had done a lot to try to work with the Alliant Energy Center because things were building as the tournament was, in particular, as was coming to conclusion down in Madison. And then once we were able to finish that up and get back to Stevens Point, of course, our focus went to the state basketball tournaments, and the issues were rising in our communities throughout Wisconsin. So Green Bay at the start was willing to allow us to get those tournaments underway and have games, but without, and I should say with, limited numbers of spectators being allowed. So we were quite limited in the number. I believe it was 200. We could only have a total of 200 people at each of those contests, if I remember correctly. And then that fell apart on Friday, actually in the middle of the day on Thursday, where we had to cancel those after those evening games had been completed. So it was pretty crazy. We were in communication with the schools that were participating in the girls' tournament. And then we had to quickly turn our attention to Madison and the sectional tournaments that were taking place. So we were contacting all of those schools about what they'd be allowed to do and what they couldn't do. And eventually we just had to end the tournament. And then that next week, the governor's office did shut down all of our schools. So that's the key with all of this, is that if schools aren't open, the WIAA doesn't operate with contests, practices, or anything. And so our tournaments had to stop, and then the spring season was lost after that.
Fast forward to fall, schools open back up, and things are underway. And I believe you said before we started that the only tournament you weren't able to do in the fall schedule was football.
Correct. Yep, we had a very successful fall season, even though we had delays getting started with it all. But regular seasons got underway, and we went in, and it really is a monitor and adjust type of scenario, where what you have to be prepared for is a lot of flexibility and really monitoring the circumstances, not only statewide, but getting to each of the communities, to each school, and to each facility that you're using. You're working with all of those entities, because county health officials have to make decisions about things in each of their counties. And then school officials have to make decisions about those. And then, like we deal with in hockey, ice rinks, and in the fall in particular, other facilities, tennis facilities, golf courses, and everybody else have to make those decisions. Of course, in the fall, the advantage was that more of it was being done outdoors, and outdoors continued to loosen up a little bit better as the year went along with all of it. And so we gradually were able to develop confidence, not only in our teams, but in our school administrators, in their parents and everyone, and they developed confidence about wearing masks, about maintaining social distancing in the sports, and it allowed us to keep kids as healthy as we possibly could. I'm not going to tell you that it was perfect by any means, but from what we know, all fall long, we did not have a student athlete contract the virus by participating in a sport. If they contracted it, it was happening either because of home visits, things that were taking place in their social lives, or something that was going on within their school. So we were able to complete almost all of those tournaments. Now, granted, we didn't have spectators at many of them, and at some they were limited, but at least the students were able to participate. And I'll tell you what, you could just see the joy that was there because of the other elements that they were dealing with, and being able to play the sports that they love meant so much to them, and it was truly appreciated just watching them do that.
Now, when we've had a couple hockey teams that have paused for a couple weeks and then come back. When that happens, when someone is confirmed and then the contact tracing happens, is that all? That's all reported up through the WIAA. So like you guys
No, it
know or
isn't at
no?
all. Yeah, no, we don't. These are things that are handled. Remember, you're dealing with illnesses and very confidential information. So we just have provided some guidelines, if you will, for the schools, and then the local health departments actually provide the specific regulations that each county has to deal with. From there, the schools pick up on those issues and develop their own schools. So, for instance, a school might identify, a county might indicate 25% capacity, for instance, for a ice rink that they're allowed. And the school might come in and say, well, we're going to limit that even further. We're only going to allow our home team to be involved as spectators for that particular contest. Those are things that the schools can do. And then you have your ice rinks that have their opportunity as well to develop their policies and procedures. So we're really at whim for working with them and working through all of that. And that's what we're in the process of doing right now, as a matter of fact, in preparing for our WIA tournament series.
And that will be starting soon. Tell us of the road you had to take to go from Madison to Wisconsin Rapids for the state tournament this year.
You bet. It is always a challenge. As I mentioned with the basketball tournaments last year, there are communities that simply are very concerned about having other schools and other people come into their communities through this pandemic. So once the Alliant Energy Center back in early November indicated that they would not allow the hockey tournament to be held, we had been talking with them about dates that we were thinking of moving it to, and conflicts and how this would all work. But they came back and said, nope, we just simply can't hold that. So we went and we checked out. It was Green Bay available, and would that be an option for us over there? They have other programs. I'm not sure if that is going to happen or not, but Disney on Ice is always one that comes up in the middle of December or middle of February that we know conflicts sometimes with our tournament series schedule with sectionals, in most cases regionals or sectionals. And then I checked with a couple of other communities, and primarily here in central Wisconsin, to see if they were willing to host, and they were not. So Southwood County came forward and indicated that they would be willing to have us, and I was extremely appreciative. I really like all the people. I like all the people that we deal with our rinks, but over at Southwood County, they seem to always be willing to find a way to make this work. And so not only were they willing to make it work, but we've been able to get 6 spectators approved for each member of the traveling party for the teams that will advance the championship. And of course, that's, I think, very important for the students and for the teams to have some support at the championship games.
How is the traveling party defined? Because I know the team roster, I believe, is 18 skaters and 2 goalies.
It's actually, we allow 22. We allow a total of 22. However, they want to break that up. And then 2 student managers, 2 high school student managers for 24, and then 4 coaches that they're allowed to have for 28, and then 1 medical person. So actually the total is 29 that we allow in for each of our contests. And that we're looking, during the tournament series, we are looking to allow at least 4, as in order to host, at least 4 spectators for each member of the traveling party to be able to be in the arena, so that they can be part of watching their son or daughter participate in those tournament games.
And we know that the championship games on Saturday are going to be on TV, the statewide broadcast network. But you guys are also working on doing the semifinal games, which will be held at local rinks.
Yes, that's correct. The sectional finals, as you know, we always have sites that are identified in advance. So we'll continue to use those since we have commitments as long as they're able to get 4 spectators per team member, party member in. And then what we will do is the semifinals now, we'll have our seeding meeting on Sunday, as we always have with the coaches who advance to the state tournament, and then determine where those seeds are. And the highest seeds will host those semifinals on Thursday at some time afternoon or evening. And then we'll have the 3 championship games on Saturday at Southwood County.
And we've seen a little bit of a Thanksgiving surge, and now we're probably going to be dealing with a Christmas New Year's surge here. How fluid are your plans if something has to change? How quickly can you guys move?
Well, we're going to be as flexible as we can. The big key during a tournament series, of course, is teams being able to participate. And so we do have a plan that we have been using all year long, where if a team has to be removed after winning, that losing team would be invited to return and compete against the other team that they'd be playing against, whether they had been a bye or had won that other part of the bracket, so to speak. So there are procedures in place, and we are looking to work with everybody and get these games done. And that's just it. It's a lot of communication. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. I'm really appreciative of all the officials, as you guys know, who have been willing to continue throughout the year. And it's really huge. But so many guys and gals have been willing to continue with us and take games and help us out. All these things are great. The rinks have been awesome, continuing to allow that. And allow high school games to be played, and we're going to need all of that cooperation once February 2nd rolls around, so we can get ourselves to the February 20th championship games.
And then the
Tom,
last
you'll
thing.
probably
You go ahead, MJ.
Oh, Tom, you're probably going to feel a pretty good sense of accomplishment if you guys can pull this off.
Really, MJ, I'll tell you, that's the thing fall wise. It's headache after headache, and it's hurdle after hurdle trying to get it done. But there are ways to do it, and you stay at it. It's worth it. As I mentioned with Bill before, that to see the joy on the kids' faces, because they've been through a lot, and this whole mental health issue is real. It is something that our adolescents really need, an outlet. And some form of activity. So MJ, yep, you're exactly right. There's a joy that you see that's an appreciation once you get this all done.
Tom, I can tell you, I've got a senior in high school who plays down here for Janesville, and it means the world to him and his teammates. They're happy to be playing.
That's what we plan to do, and it's a matter of keeping that hope alive, keeping light at the end of the tunnel for them. And I'm really excited once again that for boys anyway, we've got the 2 divisions, because I think that does the same thing. I think it gives everyone at least a belief that they've got a shot at winning some games in the tournament and can advance with their teams. And it is something for all of our students and our student bodies to take a great deal of appreciation. And it's tough. It is. We'll see how everything goes, but I'm just really excited that hockey gets to be really the first team sport that gets rolling here this winter.
And then go ahead, Del.
Go ahead. Well, Tom, what my question is, and is part of it is what you and I talked about before we came online, but the second part of, and that's going to be the studies that you had to do about why hockey was considered one of the sports that was more susceptible. But then the second thing is, part of the question is the WIAA decided to kind of shorten the hockey season, move it up by 2 weeks. And I mean, that's got to be a tough decision by the WIAA working with the coaches on that. And I just wanted to get your input on that.
It was, and first of all, just going to the susceptibility, I talked, people want to be aware because I've shared some articles with all of our school administrators, our coaches and officials on this stratosphere issue that hockey was dealing with. And what we found out east was that all of those rinks had to get shut down, in the fall as they started their programs. And then Minnesota went down, all the major states, a lot of them out west had to close up. We here in Wisconsin have been able to avoid all of this and keep our rinks open. The element with the stratosphere is that there's concern about the warm air that's in an indoor rink that sinks, and the cool air that rises from the ice inside of an ice rink, inside the boards and inside the glass. It all kind of meets at about that 6-foot height and just kind of stays there and allows the virus to live just a little bit longer. And there were concerns about that, but all of the prevention that we've put in place with students and school teams, checking their student athletes, making sure that they're healthy before they're at practice and before they're at competitions, and then the work to get splash guards and masks in place when needed have been, I have to say, have been a big advantage for us and really been advantages to keeping us going. Then as far as shortening the season is concerned, it was. This isn't easy, but the coaches were willing to go along with us. What we looked at was how could we accommodate those teams in the fall and create an additional season, and yet at the same time, for winter sports, not put our winter sport programs, because they were going to be indoors, where the virus, as we studied it, was going to be far more contagious. Could we break that? Could we shorten each of those seasons just by a bit, equally, as equitably as we could with each program, and allow winter sports to take place, but then come back with what we are calling, a fall season that's going to happen in the spring. And that's then we could fit that in before the spring season actually got underway. And right now, there are people who don't agree with it and would like to see more time for student athletes in certain sports, but it looks like it's going to provide participation opportunities for them. And I think that's going to create a real positive impact statewide. And it's the best that we could do with what we had to work with.
The kids have always seemed to be pretty flexible when it comes to being proactive against the virus. When I can tell you that the games I've went to, that kids, they take care of their business. They know what they've got to do, and they know the precautions and the routines that they have to go through, and they're pretty good with it. I mean, they understand, and they want to keep playing, but they also know that if we don't take care of this, we're going to get shut down. Yep. And nobody wants to do that.
Yep. They've taken it very seriously from day one. The coaches have emphasized that with them and done an excellent job with it. Our kids have responded, and it's kept us as healthy as we possibly can be. It's kept us going. Luckily enough, we've been able to stay open with the schools remaining open and our rinks being allowed to stay open. I mean, that was the whole key out east, was they just simply shut everything down and said, nope, we're not coming back for a while. So right now we're in good shape. And I know these kids are resilient. I know that they are ones who can overcome and really battle through this. And in the end, be stronger because of the challenges that they've been through this year.
Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to ask, the new brackets came out last week. Looks like 5 teams in Division 1 and 1 team in Division 2 had opted out of the season. I wanted to talk about how you guys allowed those schools to play WIAA instead of WIAA hockey and then delay that decision until later. What went into that?
You bet, Bill. We always have had the allowance of student athletes to be able to do WIAA if they wished, and then remain separate. And then we have some other more technical rules that we could spend a whole session on talking about. But we do have some good flexibility for students who, either want to go one way or the other, and then what are the options as far as going back and forth. Well, this year, because of COVID, some of the schools decided that they were not going to be able to start right away. So a lot of the parents and other hockey enthusiasts at rinks and everything wanted to have WIAA teams get developed, which is fine by us. Until a school team officially starts, those kids can do as they wish. So we had that all set up, made that clear for all the schools, especially in the Madison area where they wanted to do that. And then we also made clear what the coaches' requirements were, because those were there were a little more technical there, where coaches did have 5 days of coach contact that they were allowed prior to the start of their seasons. But anything beyond that 5 days, that would remove them as potential high school coaches. So we made sure that they were aware of those things, and people put that in place and decided how they wish to proceed once they understood that.
Tom, and I could be wrong about this, but when a team is eliminated, like in the first round of the playoffs, is their season done? Can they still play like another game or two?
Yes, MJ, good question. They can. In this year, we have allowed teams to continue to play throughout the tournament series. They can continue on after that if they wish to schedule more games and use that time.
Just kind of like a pickup game, right?
Yes, just, schools can organize it and pick that up so that they're using that as they wish. And that it's a good advantage this year in particular, just because of the number of games that some of them may or may not get in when it comes to COVID situations.
I like that. That's I like the flexibility there for the kids.
You bet.
Tom,
Coach,
just a quick
go ahead,
question.
Del.
Quick question on your background. Are you a native Wisconsin? And if so, where did you attend high school?
I did. Stevens Point, Pacelli, right when the program was just getting started. I can tell you all about it. And, they didn't have it when I was first there. So I was a basketball player. I don't kid you, but I did play hockey prior to going to school there, and loved it. Stevens Point, as you know, has great tradition. And this young fella who still is playing for the Stars has added a little bit of highlight to our whole community, along with some others. And loved. I was the athletic director when Joe and Spash won the state championship back in 2001, and very proud of the accomplishments that we've had, and how been lucky enough to work with a number of different programs as they develop their hockey programs and put some things together as I moved through my administrative career.
Boy, back in those days, Spash really brought some pretty good teams down to state, and it took a while for them to win that state championship. I know 97, 98, 99, they had good teams down there, and finally broke through with Joe Pavelski, and he was only a junior.
Yep, that's right. He was only a junior. I'll tell you, when I got the job at Spash, I told the superintendent, I'll take it as long as you allow me to hire Jack Stoskoff as the hockey coach. And he let me do that, and by golly, it turned out to be a really good decision.
Yeah, absolutely. He brought some pretty good teams down there to Madison, and some young men that came through. Yep. Pretty talented hockey players. I'm sure he probably, along the way, also prepared them for life.
They did. It was really we had some very funny experiences in lots of different situations as everybody goes through. But I'll tell you what, there were great learning experiences for these young men, and they were a pretty talented crew. That whole crew that Joe had along with them. There were some really good hockey players that I knew were part of that group, and could visualize and see that they had potential. But it was kind of funny because Spash there was always something that happened that prevented them from getting that state championship. But that one year, by golly, things just worked out. All the chips came together.
All the planets aligned and everything else.
Usually that thing that happened was Wausau West.
It was. It was.
That year 2000 when they won the state championship, Spash only had 2 losses going into the state tournament. I believe they were both to Antigo.
I can't recall. I think you're right, Bill.
My brother was Antigo's all-state goalie that season. I believe he beat Spash both games they played.
Excellent. Yeah, it was. There were some great teams, and the Wisconsin Valley Conference was just a phenomenal hockey conference back in that day, and it was really amazing the interest and the excitement that was created in each of those rinks, and really happy to have that returning and happening across the state now for everybody.
You know, Tom, you mentioned that about how the Wisconsin Valley Conference was loaded back in that time, and it sure was. But also, so was the Big 8 Conference down here in the southern part of the state.
Yes.
I mean, you had Madison Memorial win 2 titles, Beloit won one, and Sun Prairie won as well in '97. I mean,
yes.
There was some really good hockey in the state at that time.
You're exactly right. You know, the Big 8 was so well known for really, along with Superior, bringing along the excitement of hockey, and it was just phenomenal. With the Badgers and how well they were playing, everything was kind of coming together in that Madison area, and the level of enthusiasm for hockey in those days was just tremendous. And hoping that we can get through this COVID scenario, and because the Badgers, Tony's really putting together a great squad once again, and hoping that they can bring that program back up. That really is one of the things that has a tendency to really add to a lot of enthusiasm with high school hockey as well.
One last thing before we cut you loose here, Tom. I remember that back when Beloit won in '99, Spash had a freshman goalie by the name of Sean Krusitsky.
Yep.
And I remember in 2000 they made it there, and they lost a heartbreaker to Madison Memorial, and Madison Memorial ended up going on winning the state title. And 2002, when Joe was there, I mean, Sean Krusitsky was able to win a state title. And I'll tell you what, I was so happy for that kid because, man, he'd been through plenty of trial and tribulation just through his high school career, and was finally able to get to the top of the mountain.
As I recall, MJ, with that, Sean had one of the highest save percentages or number of saves that really allowed us to win that game and work through the tournament. He had just a phenomenal tournament all the way around, and his leadership and experience certainly were very key elements that probably got overshadowed by Joe's play, but really deserved a lot more recognition than he got.
I could be wrong. Bill, can you tell me that in that tournament in 2002, was that against New Richmond, that Spash won state?
Superior.
I think it was.
2002 was Superior. They beat Superior 2-0.
2000. Okay, the year they beat Superior?
Yep.
Okay. I was thinking about Matt Page came through for New Richmond, and time like that. I know he came through then, but I wasn't sure if they met New Richmond in the end or not.
Matt Page was 2003. Superior beat New Richmond that year.
I was going to say that next year, as I recall, they had a really good squad.
Yeah, he played out of his mind. Tom, appreciate your time on a Sunday night.
Thanks, you guys. Glad to be part of things. Love being associated with you, and really look forward. Hope you're able to find a way to work your way over to Rapids as we put this all together.
Okay, sounds great.
Our other 4 guests this season have been singing your praises. So,
well, there's no reason. I guarantee this has been a lot of work by all the coaches and everyone else. I just happen to be the person who kind of acts as a little bit of a conductor and getting it all taken care of and organized.
Hey, Tom, I want to say thanks for coming on tonight, but then thanks again for any time we've asked you to come up to the booth for an interview during the state tournament. You've come up and you've actually, really helped us in promoting our awards that we gave out to the players at the end of the season, and we really appreciate that. Thanks.
Glad to. You guys do a great job with all those awards, and rightly so. So keep up the good work, Del.
Okay, thanks a lot, Tom.
You bet, guys. Have a good night and stay safe.
You betcha.
See you soon. Right. Bye-bye. Okay.
Tom Shafranski from the WIAA discussing high school hockey with us. Guys, time to get on with the rest of the show. We got our players of the week, and we've had some applicants, and boys and girls, and Dell
Nominees.
applicants, nominees.
You don't get to apply for Player of the Week.
I'm trying to do too many things here at once.
Well,
Good thing we don't have to fill out a job application to run this podcast. Otherwise, we'd be in trouble.
we actually had some players that applied their talents on the ice to be nominated for the Player of the Week this
Great.
week. And their Player of the Week is sponsored by the Wyndham Garden Madison Fitchburg Players of the Week. And this week, from a little northwest on the girls' side, we have a defenseman/forward that scored 1 goal and 2 assists in a 6-2 win over Black River Falls. In a 4-4 tie against Chippewa Falls, Menominee had 3 goals, no assists. And then on Friday, in a win over Onalaska, had another goal for a total of 5 goals and 2 assists this week for the Eau Claire area Stars. Kennedy Grulke is our girls Player of the Week. On the boys' side, JJ Weebush from Edgewood, a forward, and he's a junior, in an 8-2 win against RWD, had 3 goals and 4 assists, so had 7 points out of 8 goals put on the board. And then in a 6-3 win versus MJ's beloved Janesville, he had 3 goals and 3 assists in that 6-3 win. And this week, our boys' Player of the Week is JJ Weebush from Edgewood. And with that, I'm going to toss it over to Bill for our top 6s.
Bill, before you jump into that, I'm going to tell you, I got to see JJ Weebush play in person this week. And that Edgewood top line is very good. Along with Cody Menzel there. Cody Menzel's as good as they get. Yeah, we've had other players that get the publicity, but I'll tell you what, he's right up there. There is no doubt about that. And JJ Weebush was one of those players that, Dell, did you see Edgewood at all?
No, I didn't get a chance to go up there. I actually had grandkids at that night. But since you got to see Edgewood play, I mean, we're looking at their record, and their record is showing 4-5. Are they better than that 4-5 record?
Without a doubt. They're playing a pretty tough schedule as well. It's just like Janesville. And that's not an excuse or anything. I mean, you look at their strength of schedule, and boy, they're playing some tough teams too. I know they've had some goaltending issues where kids couldn't, had problems with a goaltender who was gone, and they've had to put somebody in that isn't necessarily a goaltender. So they had a couple games where they lost, but you know what? They played pretty well the other night, and you got to give them a lot of credit because, Edgewood always gets better as the season goes on. And, in the sectionals, in the end, they'll be there.
Well, that's one thing, we've always said is, you want to be playing your best hockey once that road to Madison this year, the road to Wisconsin Rapids comes up. But, that's the thing that's always hard to see is if you don't get to see these teams play all the time and all you do is come onto the website and look at what their record is, you don't actually see what that team consists of or what they've gone through. And last week we spoke of a player that stepped up and stepped into the net when their goalie was down. And for any player, that's at the high school level to take on that and step into the net to play a position that they're not accustomed to playing at an age where a lot of kids are afraid to do anything to embarrass themselves. A lot of kudos out to those kids.
Junior, did you ever do that? I mean, your brother played goalie. Did you ever try it?
I played goalie for Squirt and Pee Wee.
Did you?
I actually quit playing hockey after I was a Pee Wee.
Yeah.
I quit after I was a Pee Wee. Not to get too into it, I hated all my teammates. When you're playing any team sport, who you play with matters, and
oh, you bet it does.
I'm still friends with several people that I played baseball with as a kid. I have one person I'm even Facebook friends with that I played hockey with as a kid. We weren't friends, and after my Pee Wee year, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. That also happens to be the year that USA Hockey changed their age ranges from the end of August to, I think it's birth year. So I actually got a third year of Pee Wee. And then I went back to playing hockey. I played basically a third year of Pee Wee. So those guys went up to Bantam. I played Pee Wee again with my brother's group. I had never played with his group. He was 2 years behind me. I played defense through that and then 2 years of Bantam. And then I was done again before going to high school with those guys I didn't like. I'm sure they're fine. We just didn't get along. And, I wasn't in danger of... Anago had a string of all-state goalies. They had Brandon Clement, who won the state tournament in 93. Then they had Chris Wild. Then they had Matt Incha. And then they had the kid who replaced me, who was not an all-state goalie. And then they had my brother. And then Derek Wavelo. Once again, 2 more all-state goalies. And I think Jason Schrader, all-state goalie. So they had a huge string. Had I been there, I would not have been an all-state goalie between Matt Incha and my brother. But I was average. And it wasn't for me. But then I started playing defense. I really, really liked that. But then when it came time to play in high school, I just didn't want to play with those guys, and I focused on baseball.
I see I missed the memo about the knit cap.
Well, I always wear this because I haven't had a haircut since April. Not April.
Oh, my God.
August. Before kids went back to school and, the numbers started shooting up again, I got a haircut in August. I don't go places, so I have to wear a hat so that you can't see it.
I haven't had a haircut since probably May or June. But then again, nobody ever knows when I get one anyways.
I had one a couple of weeks ago, but, I'm just covering up because I think you guys, I must have missed something. So I had to get my hat and, look cool like the rest of the guys. All right, let's be cool, guys, and hand it over to Junior and talk about that top 6. And
sure.
Junior, been a little bit of beating up on each other. And where do the chips fall this week?
Well, surprising nobody, Hudson is still unanimous at number 1. University School is up to 2. Chippewa Falls is 3rd. Notre Dame is down to 4th. Verona comes in at 5th. And KMMO actually grabs the 6th spot this week. All of the usual suspects, Wausau West and the 2 Eau Claire teams, just kind of fell out this week. Division 2, St. Mary Springs is another unanimous number 1. Lakeland is 2nd. Rice Lake is 3rd. Hayward is 4th. Mosinee, Oregon, and Superior are all tied for 5th. Which is surprising because we got more votes this week than we normally get. And Superior they've just barely started their season. They clearly were not ready to play their first game of the year when they played Eau Claire North and got beat 7-1. But after that, they beat Amory 3-0, and they just had a 4-3 loss to Chippewa Falls. Really good game, really nice game by their goalie. So Superior, they're back on the schedule and they're back in the rankings, tied for 5th.
Boy, that Chippewa Falls team's pretty good this year.
They are. Their first line is a scary good line, but overall they're they're a solid team, especially defensively. And then the girls, not unanimous, but number 1 is the Fox City Stars. 2 is the Eau Claire Area Stars. 3 is the Western Wisconsin Stars. 4 is Chippewa Falls Menominee. 5 is Hudson, and 6 is St. Croix Valley. Central Wisconsin Storm did come in at 7th. They did just beat the Western Wisconsin Stars 4-0 on Saturday. But through the whole body of the work of the season, the Western Wisconsin Stars are still ahead of them.
I got the chance to see Fond du Lac Springs yesterday. And I'll tell you what, I came away very impressed with that team. That team is very good.
Their 15-1 record bears that out.
Yeah, they got 9 seniors. They got Brady Welsh. We've all known about Brady Welsh, but they have also he's got some players along the way that help him. But I really came away impressed. And their sophomore goaltender they have, kid played really well. As I've seen of him, didn't see many shots, but got a couple situations where he had to come up with some big saves and was able to. But Fond du Lac Springs, I came away impressed. They were exactly what everybody had said they were. They're going to be hard to beat down the stretch, I can tell you that. But they would beat some Division I teams.
They have beaten several.
Yeah.
All you do is look at their last 5 games. What beat Wausau West 7-1, Eau Claire Memorial 5-2. Then they beat Waupun, and then their final 3 games were shutouts: a 6-0 win over Waupun, 6-0 win over Notre Dame, and then their win against Janesville last night. But then before that, their one loss on the season was a 4-2 loss to USM, to University School, a 4-2 loss. And the day before that, they had beat Madison Edgewood over at Poppy Waterman 10-0. So I mean that is a strong team.
Yeah,
And
that USM team's also pretty good. I got to see them on Monday. Got to watch them online, and they do a lot of good things as well. And when I watch them, I see how they did the rest of the week. And they went on and they played Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost Friday night. They had a tough loss, and they come back on Saturday night and they had another tough loss. I mean, Corey McCracken's guys, they play a tough schedule. You got to give credit there, but a couple of tough losses for Notre Dame. But that's a team that's they're going to be there in the end too, because it's a very strong squad.
MJ, you're down there in that where you're living down there, Janesville. What can you tell me about the Oregon team?
Senior goaltender Colton Daly, a good senior class. I'm going to get a chance to see them next week as Janesville and Oregon will play. So I'm really curious to see how they play. I know we played them last year, and it was a really, really tight game. But they've always come to play, and you got some of those kids that came up in that area that came out of the Verona area. It's kind of like the same area where Oregon and Verona are, geographically. So you got some of those kids that, from that area who are talented, and they go over to Oregon and they're still good. I mean, Oregon's been able to put together some good squads.
I see they're sitting there with a 6-1 record. They beat Waukesha 4-3 in their last game. I'm pulling up their schedule now, taking a quick look at it. I had looked at it earlier today when I was going through some things, but waiting on my internet to. Did you send AOL up to me, MJ, or what?
Going back to Springs while Dell looks that up, we got some grousing, last year during the state tournament because of the dominant performance that Springs put on, and we've seen some this year on social media if you follow. Why are they in Division II? Why are they in Division II? Well, 7 of their top 8 scorers this season are seniors. So Springs could very well be like those underclassmen that aren't scoring right now. It might just be he's got so many seniors that they're good, they're going to play, but they're not going to be this world beater forever. Next year, 7 of their top 8 scorers are graduating next year. They could very well be, what you think of as a small school, Division II team where they've got like that one top line that really does the lion's share of their scoring, and lines 2 and 3 are just trying keep the puck out of the net. This is a special group, so there's people grousing about them being in Division II. Division II is appropriate for the size of school they are, and 7 of their 8 top scorers are graduating this year.
So MJ, looking at Oregon's schedule, they December 10th they beat Arrowhead 5-2. Then they beat New Berlin. Their third game of the season was their loss, where they lost 5-4 to Sauk Prairie. But then they posted a 5-4 win over Middleton, and then their next 3 games all ended in the same score of 4-3, and these are all the JRM tournament.
Joe Raymond, yep.
Yep, the Joe Raymond tournament. 4-3 over Fond du Lac, 4-3 over KMMO, and 4-3 over Waukesha.
And bear in mind that they were playing club hockey, so I can't say for certain that everything that they were doing is in there.
Right.
Teams may not have entered it. They may have entered them as because you can enter something you didn't used to be able to do on Sports Engine. You can enter just a name for a team now as an opponent, and you don't actually have to fill out stats and stuff for out-of-state teams. That's not a feature they used to have. So it's tough to say that all their stuff is in there, but it looks like their game on January 8th, I believe that was canceled because that was scheduled as 2 WIAA teams playing each other, but they've started playing WIAA.
They were
practice.
scheduled to play Verona.
Yeah, so they're working on their 11 days of practice before the WIAA schedule starts. So it looks like they'll kick off on the 14th, I believe.
We've looked at their record, and in the Joe Raymond tournament, there's good teams in that tournament. They win a couple games, all 3 games 4-3. And I know, talking to Larry Clemens, one of the games in the third period, it was basically bend but don't break. But, senior goaltending, and he's worked very hard at becoming a quality goaltender. Colton Daly, I've known his parents for a long time, and I've known Colton for quite a while. And it's his senior year, and he's making a name for himself. He's played some good hockey, and there's still time for him to play some more good hockey along the way. And, we'll see what Oregon does as the season goes on.
So, Bill, did you get a chance to watch any games on Live Barn this week?
I didn't get to watch any full games. The kids would not allow it.
Okay.
If I was sitting down and watch a game, they started fighting, or just, it was the thing. I watched parts of many games, but I didn't get to watch any full games this week.
I just, our girls' side, we've got Fox City Stars who's sitting there, and I guess you said they weren't the unanimous first team choice, the number 1 seed this week. But I mean, you look at their wins that they've played so far this season, and they've been impressive to me. Their closest game was their last one, which was Friday night, a 3-2 win over the Chippewa Falls Menominee team. But they've played USM twice, Northern Edge, St. Croix, and maybe the argument that somebody had put in there is they haven't had the strongest schedule, but you only can play who's available to play and on your schedule. So especially this year.
I don't normally do this. This week, the other team that got a first place vote was the Eau Claire Area Stars. In the past, the team that was getting the first place vote was the Central Wisconsin Storm, and they were getting it from Fox City Stars head coach Jeff Fox. He was the coach that was keeping them from being unanimous. Because if you look at it from his perspective, and I haven't talked about this with him, if you look at it from this perspective, they graduated a lot of seniors last year after winning the state tournament. So they should not be as good as they were. Just on paper, the Fox City Stars are not as good as the team they were last year. They graduated a lot of girls. So if you're thinking about it that way, yes, and like all these other teams in the state are great. There's a very easy case to make that they shouldn't be the number 1 team in the state. On the other hand, they've beaten St. Croix Valley 6-3 and 4-2, and now they've beaten the Chippewa Falls Menominee Sabres 3-2. Those same Sabres have beaten a bunch of those other teams we just mentioned, and they tied the Eau Claire Area Stars earlier this week. So it's tough to say where all these teams shake out, especially in the girls game. There's those teams bunched up at the top, and really you could order them any way you want and it doesn't matter. Like right now, Hudson it's obvious that Hudson is number 1 in D1. Now, does that mean they're going to win the state tournament? No, anybody can win it. Any one of those teams can win it, but it's obvious Hudson is number 1 in D1. It's obvious Springs is number 1 in D2. It's not obvious that the Fox City Stars are number 1 in the girls bracket. Any of those teams in the top 6 could probably give any of those other teams a really, really strong game. It's tough. Those top teams are all like right up there.
Well, I always think it's kind of hard to me, it's a lot of times where over the past few years we've said, okay, we kind of knew who the top 10 teams were, or usually the top 7 teams on the girls' side and everything. I think this year, while we still kind of know that, I still think it's a little harder to figure out who that number 1 team is, because just you had the different times that teams were able to start playing this year. Yes. And so that made it a little more difficult too. And so, and even on the boys' side, to me, it's the same thing. the different start times for different locations makes it a little bit harder to judge. But you got Hudson and you got Fond du Lac Springs that definitely stand out, and you can see why they're the unanimous, like you said, Junior. But like also on the girls' side, it's just I think what when that we hit that 2 week stretch before the state tournament, you're going to see some things fall out that maybe one of the things is we know that probably what 3 out of the top 6 won't make it because they're all in the same sectional.
I think there's. I mean, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, 5 out of the top 6 girls teams are in the same section right now.
Oh my goodness.
Eau Claire area, Western Wisconsin, Chippewa Falls, Menominee, Hudson, and St. Croix Valley. They're all in the same section. Assuming the alignment's the same as last year. I haven't looked. Yeah. I was waiting for the new opt-out list because the girls got delayed a week from the boys. And the Fox City Stars are first, and currently Central Wisconsin Storm is 7th. They're in the same section right now. So, I mean, it's tough. The Stars, their next 4 games are St. Croix Valley, Hudson, St. Croix Valley, and Eau Claire area. I mean, come on. This week alone, it's St. Croix Valley, Hudson, and St. Croix Valley. That's a tough schedule. I mean, if they come out of that group of 4 games 3-1, I think you have a hard case not giving them the top ranking. If they come out of that 3-1, 2-2, they could probably still hang on to it depending on how those 2 games shake out. But 3-1, they keep the top ranking. 2-2, they might keep it, probably not. 1-3, definitely not. Just the way the girls' brackets are going this year. Hudson is 6-1 on the season. Eau Claire area is 4-0-1. St. Croix Valley, their schedule has been unkind. They're 4-4, but like every game they've lost has been to a ranked team. They've lost to the Fox City Stars twice, and they've lost to Hudson twice. So, I mean, this is just we used to have top 10 rankings instead of top 6s, and the girls' rankings was like the top 4 and everybody else. Now there's like 7. Right now, the way I see it, there's 7 legit teams that should be ranked and 6 spots to rank them. And there's arguments to be made in the southern part of the state. If they had their regular complement of girls teams playing, where would the Cap City Cougars be? Where would the Madison Metro Lynx be? Where would the Rock County Fury be? USM is no slouch. I don't think they're on that elite level right now, like some of those other teams, but they're having a fine season. The girls hockey is getting better, which makes it so sad that it's also getting smaller. I don't think we lost any teams this year, but we lost one last year. We will ultimately lose teams this year because of how WIAA is shaking out, but I don't think we were meant to lose any teams this year. I think we lost one last year, and we lost one the year before. It was not that many years ago. We were up at 32, I think, and now we're at 27. And that's if everybody's in this year. Obviously, don't carry that around, but girls hockey is getting better, but it's getting to be less, and that's not fun.
When you were talking about Fox City Stars, and I might have missed this, but they're doing it this year without Maddie Jablonski, and that was a big piece of the puzzle last year.
I'm sure UW Eau Claire is happy to have her.
She was pretty good.
Michaela Zilish was our player of the week a couple weeks ago. And I remember when Dell said it, he said it like he'd never said her name before. We've been saying her name for 4 years. Mm-hmm. Like we've mentioned her at least once a year, at least in a game recap or something, or player of the week every year for like the last 4 years. It's not like she's new. We remember
a few years back, even her brother got some mention. Her brother Connor.
I don't remember him, but the name sounds familiar.
I do.
We've been doing this so long. Like you said, Matt Page in 2003. I'm like, that wasn't that long ago, was it? Yes, it really was that long ago. That was 17 years ago. I'm like, that was 2013, not 2003. No, it was 2003.
And I remember that year when New Richmond was in the state tournament. They played a long game against Verona. And that's when Verona had Jack Scaly and Dan Sturgis. and it went to overtimes, and it was quite a while.
3 overtimes.
And Matt Page stood his ground, and that was one of the best games I've ever seen at state. It was just a phenomenal game.
Well, I mean, both goalies, Glenn Walker for Verona and Matt Page,
Glenn
were both
Walker.
great in that game. Because I mean, Verona actually or New Richmond actually outshot Verona in that game, 50-45.
That's a lot of pucks.
That's a lot of shots for a 2-1 game.
Yeah, both goalies around their game, no doubt about it. Let's talk quickly. Let's shift gears here a little bit. The Hobie Baker Awards are going to be ballots have been sent out, if I remember correctly. Junior, is that right?
Yes. I am spacing on his name.
Jim Hayes.
Jim Hayes. Yeah, he's been emailing the coaches about once a week since they started them. The deadline is February 1st. Obviously, Wisconsin does great in terms of participation versus other high school hockey playing states, but we'd like to do better. We'd like 100%. In this year of all years, you can probably do that. There's got to be a senior on your team if doing something this year in their community as far as anything.
Whether it's helping teammates, whether it's walking little old ladies across the street, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
It's that one person who has a high character.
Yes.
And that's the word that's out there. And coaches have to pick a player. And would love to see 100% participation. So, make sure your coaches get on that and make sure they fill it out. Does it only take like a minute or two to fill the ballot out? Ballot's not too terribly long.
No, it's not that long. You should write something compelling.
Yeah.
I mean, reading some of we get the God, I'm having a bad time with names. Our Character Award.
Bursch.
Yeah, the Adam Burrish Award. I'm like, good Lord, I was looking at his...
the Rachel, was the Rachel Bible Award, and then we went
Kenyon
to her
Bible.
married name.
Rachel Kenyon, yeah.
Yeah. Like, just reading the nominations for the Burrish Award last year, I wasn't involved in the nomination process for the girls one, I don't remember. Maybe. Reading the nominations with I was like tearing up. Like, yeah, this kid deserves an award. So does this one. Too bad, Adam.
I'm glad I don't have to pick the winner of that one. I'm glad that goes to Rachel and Joe to make those decisions, because those are tough ones to make.
Yeah, oof. I sent him the list, and I waited for his response, but in my head I had him ranked, and the one he picked I think I had second. Into where I'd have given him out, but I'm like, yeah, you could make a case for any of them. I'm like, that's a brutal award to pick. So having one available for every team, like the Hobie Baker Character Award, it's much better.
Big deal.
Yeah, it is. You shouldn't just recognize the players who are really great at hockey, because you know what? There are a whole bunch of other kids who are out there that play every day. Your Janesville Bluebirds don't have a win this season, but the kids are still going out there and playing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one of the things that we've always tried to talk about, and we've actually asked, fans and coaches, to send in and tell us about them, is that player that you don't see his or her name in the score box, but they're the one that's in that corner fighting for that puck, digging for the puck, diving in front of the goalie and saving the goalie from a shot that's coming in hard, laying out and sacrificing their body, blocking that shot and stuff. We'd like to hear more about these players.
Taking on a number one player.
You know who else would like to hear about it is their parents. There was a Wausau West player. Given that the Matt Page thing was 17 years ago, this could have been 12, 14 years ago, or 5. I have no idea. That I said something about here on our podcast. I saw him just working in the corner to dig the puck out. He was not one of their leading scorers. I don't remember if he was first or second line or third line. The kid worked his ass off every time I saw him play, just all over the ice. And I said on the podcast, if a team had 3 or 4 of that kid, they would be one of the best defensive teams in the state. That's the kind of kid goals are great, assists are great, but the kids that just go out there and work and help you win, those are the kids that you really want. And I got a note from his parents like 2 days after the podcast aired saying thank you. I'm like, yeah. I mean, if you know those kids that are out there, send something in. We'll talk about them, and then their parents will feel great about it because, they did a good job.
And the thing is you have these players on the team, and without them, you're not going to win. But that's not who's talked about. And there's a lot of times that those players feel underappreciated for what they do, that maybe they're not contributing, and that contribution needs to be noticed.
Well, I guess you can call them role players. They understand their role in the team. They go out there, they do their job, and get the next line out there, and whether it's shutting down the other line or even putting one in the back of the net on their own line. I mean, these are guys that every team's got to have. And
we're as guilty of this as anybody, because obviously our player of the week is generally gonna go to, especially is generally gonna, if you compared our player of the week list every week to the number of kids who play Team Wisconsin, there's a lot of crossover there. It's not something we intend to do. It's just those kids are they show up in the numbers that people want when they submit player of the week nominations. I mean, it's not something we're intending to do. But there was a comment on our Facebook earlier in the season about when I was listing off the teams that were playing WIAA to start the year, and someone said that they should all play WIAA all year and just get rid of WIAA hockey. We should play WIAA hockey only. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. And they're like, well, you could make the season longer. And I'm like, yeah, but a lot of these guys also play football and baseball, or the girls, soccer and softball, or track, or cross country, or volleyball, or any other number of sports. And they're like, yeah, the person's like, yeah, say that to all the Team Wisconsin and the wheel players. I'm like, you're talking about 2% of the hockey players in the state play Team Wisconsin or the wheel. You can't
It's a small number.
Yeah, you can't set your policy for the entire state's high school hockey based on the small number of people that play wheel or Team Wisconsin. Most teams don't have more than 2 to 3 wheel players on the top end. Most teams don't have any Team Wisconsin players. To have them reshuffle their entire winter sports calendar, especially if they're a multi-sport athlete, so that you can accommodate those few at the top, is ridiculous. Somehow we were talking about character awards, and we've gone way off topic all around the bend.
Well, that's what people like about this podcast is we start with one thing, and next thing you know, we're out in left field about something else. Hey, how the Brewers looking this year, speaking of left field?
Well, left field, they look good. It's hard to say. I can tell you right now the Cubs look bad. That's always positive.
Yeah.
How'd you like the Mets trade?
The Mets are going to be that
good.
division is good. That division is good. If the Phillies had a bullpen, they would be good. And hiring Dave Dombrowski to be your DM is not a way to get a bullpen. That's been the thing he's bad at his whole GM career. He's great at spending money and building a bunch of hitters and starting pitchers. He can't build a bullpen. He never has. The Brewers, they should be. I mean, they should have been in contention last year. They have the talent to do it. They're a very stars and scrubs type team, but they're not bad. The division is not overly strong. The Cubs aren't going to be good again ever as long as the Ricketts family owns the team. It's very rare that you see an owner giving a speech about how he doesn't care about baseball. He just wants to make money. But Tom Ricketts did that, so whatever. The Cubs are not gonna. They're not gonna. If they're. I mean, they still have enough players on their roster that they can win games, but they're not trying to win.
They still got that Anthony Rizzo guy.
Yes, they do. The Reds tried to win last year and it didn't work, and it looks like they're kind of backpedaling from that. The Pirates may or may not get better. The real competition in the division is going to be St. Louis again, as it always is, and I think the Brewers can swing with them.
Junior, did I see you post something about the Brewers looking at Schwarber, or somebody posted something about
I
that?
did not post anything about that. I think Kyle Schwarber is one of the most overrated players in the recent history of the game.
Yeah, whoever had posted it, somebody's comment on there was, "Can he play third?"
Like, we still don't know if there's going to be a DH in the National League. I would not want Kyle Schwarber playing any position in the field for my team. If you're in a DH, if you're in the AL with a DH, Kyle Schwarber, great. Bring him on in. If he has to play the field, he cannot be on your baseball team.
Can he play goalie?
I doubt it. Kyle Schwarber, the name just Kyle Schwarber sounds more like a hockey player than it does a baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of looks like a hockey player, but not like a modern one, like an 80s gross one.
Well, you remember back in the day, the Atlanta Braves had Tom Glavine as a
Tom
pitcher.
Glavine played.
He played hockey.
He played hockey at Massachusetts.
He was Canadian. And speaking of Canadian, how about the World Junior Championships? Now that we're
Speaking
way
of
off
Stevens'
topic.
point, he didn't have any points in the turn or goals in the championship, but Cole Caulfield,
It's phenomenal.
Wisconsin's own.
He had a goal against the Gophers today, and they lost that game 5-3. But Cole Caulfield, my goodness, for a little guy, and I remember meeting him once at one of our award ceremonies, and I'll tell you, it's like, wow, this is a small kid, but man, is he
swore
phenomenal.
in an on-camera interview.
He's what?
I said he swore
Yes,
in
he
an
did.
on-camera interview.
Yes, he did.
He accidentally dropped an F-bomb and had to stop himself.
And he kind of chuckled about it, and when you look at him, you got to remember though, at his age, though, they're still kids, but he's
Yes.
on the verge of probably going to sign with Montreal after this college hockey season, and the stakes are going to get higher for him, especially playing in a market like Montreal.
Well, him and his brother, a couple of the games I watched
Yeah,
for the
Brock.
Dodgers this year, sat there and they combined for a couple of goals, and I think they were playing Notre Dame at the time when I was watching it and stuff. So
Yeah, Rock's had a nice season as well. Badgers, I think, been kind of a little bit up and down this year. They split with Minnesota this weekend, won Saturday night, lost today, but
Just
they've been
getting a win
competitive
against the number one team in the country is pretty good. So
Yes, especially when the number one team comes in undefeated.
mm-hmm.
And it's our former player of the year, Sam Stang, is putting up numbers there as well. You kind of had a feeling he would.
you figure the kid from West Salem, I can't.
Jack Gorniak.
Jack Gorniak,
Yeah,
he's currently
Gorniak.
fourth on the team in points, or actually tied for third on the team in points.
And stuff. I go, you look at that roster, and you see some Wisconsin kids that played Wisconsin prep hockey doing some good things on the ice.
Jack Gorniak, I remember him coming up, and everybody said he was this great player, and I'd never had a chance to see him, and I got to see him at the state tournament, and they were only there for one game, and he definitely stood out. But once he got to Wisconsin, I mean, he kind of accepted his role a little bit, and was even drafted by Montreal, and he's putting together a pretty nice career there. It's taken a couple of years, but still, he's putting together a very nice career for the Badgers.
Well, I mean, you look at the difference of what he had to play. You're talking, a small town, West Salem. You're not going to find too many teams, that are smaller than that really throughout the state. And, and then going to play that level of competition, D1 hockey, that's quite a step up. And, and learning to adapt yourself from being, probably, the guy the go-to guy on your high school hockey team to figuring out what your role is in a D1 hockey. And I think that's something for every hockey player getting up to that level.
He went straight from WIAA hockey and Team Wisconsin to playing on the Badgers. He played 2 games at the end of the USHL season with the Lincoln Stars after the Team Wisconsin season was over. So he went straight from high school hockey to playing for the Badgers, and that is not something that happens very often. You look at the Badgers, they got 5 Wisconsin guys coming in next year. Every one of them is playing junior hockey.
Mm-hmm. You remember the one kid who came straight from without going to juniors was years ago, and that was Brad Navin.
Yes.
Kid from Wapaka.
Yeah, and he was in the years this is the 20th season of Wisconsin.
He was a good sized kid too.
Yes, he had no business for being as fast as he was at his size. This is 20 years we've been doing Wisconsin pro hockey. This is our 20th season. I want to say in the years that I've been involved, he's the best player I've seen in high school. I don't know, I don't follow these guys through juniors. If they go to college somewhere other than Wisconsin, generally I'm not fully aware of it. I just don't follow. I follow the NHL and I follow high school hockey, and I don't follow all the steps in between. But in terms of high school hockey, yeah, he was the best Wisconsin high school hockey player I've seen, I think, playing for Wapaka. He played 4 years at Wapaka, then he goes straight to Wisconsin. His senior season, even though in Wisconsin he didn't put up those same kind of offensive numbers, he was their captain his senior year.
It changes when you get up there at that level. It changes a lot. I mean, guys who were the top dog, all of a sudden realize that, hey, everybody here is good, and my role may end up changing. And do guys adapt to it?
It happens on the girls' side too. Maddie Rowe from St. Croix Valley Fusion played 4 years at St. Croix Valley, played 4 years with the Badgers. She was one of the top scorers in the state at St. Croix Valley. In 4 years with the Badgers, she was a defensive defenseman. And now she's playing for the Minnesota Whitecaps of the NWHL. There's two, what's her name? One's from Hudson, and then Charlotte Akravic from Eau Claire area. They're both playing at Minnesota State Mankato this year. 4 years of high school hockey, and then there is no junior hockey for women that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So now they're playing at Minnesota State Mankato, and it bothers me that I can't remember the name of the girl from Hudson, because she's now on the Mankato women's team, and she's their captain.
I know exactly who you're thinking of, and I can't remember her either.
But when you start getting old, when you start thinking like, well, Maddie shouldn't have been done playing college hockey yet.
No, yeah, she was on the national championship team in 2019, and then the 2020 year they got knocked out early. That was her senior season.
When you talk about past players in college, just throw this by quick. One of the kids that we had as an award winner is playing Division I hockey out east and getting a lot of playing time and getting his name thrown around a little bit. Kid by the name of Chase Blackman. I'm sure you guys have remembered Chase Blackman from Hudson.
Yes.
Plays for UMass Lowell, and he's I believe he's in his junior year. He's having a pretty nice season. Him and the next year, Jordan Halverson, who plays down here in Janesville, who just committed to St. Thomas University, who's going Division I, St. Thomas out of the Twin Cities. And I got a chance to talk to Jordan last night, and I talked to him about the decision, and he said he is just tickled to death about it. He's gonna be at home. Family can come watch him play. I mean, he's very comfortable with his decision, and he's very happy. So, he maybe could have went to bigger schools, but he found the one that's a good fit for him.
That St. Thomas campus is a really nice campus. I know my oldest boy actually went up there and took a tour of the campus and everything back in can't even remember when he graduated anymore. You figure he's 31 years old now, so but
somewhere a few years back.
I go, nice campus. I go, the football field had purple in the end zone, so that's like, are you sure you want to think about going here? But no, otherwise, it was a nice campus and everything. And he ended up going to MSOE and then going into the military. But it's nice to see the kids being able to find a place to play and a place where they're comfortable.
Anna Wilgren. That's the girl from Hudson.
Anna Wilgren. Yes.
The Mankato women's team.
I knew it was one of those names. Oh, my goodness.
Well, MJ, I think you need to take us home.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll go ahead and take us home, but why don't you tell everybody what BACA stands for?
BACA, Bikers Against Child Abuse. It's as you guys know, it's dear to my heart. It's the other place I volunteer all my time to when I'm not doing Wisconsin prep hockey.
Well, it's much better than Bikers for Child Abuse, because that's not cool.
No. And stuff. So
Okay. Junior, we about done here?
I think so.
I think so. We got our players of the week. We got our rankings. We got Hobie Baker Award talked about. We got Tom Shafranski talking about. We talked about the Brewers' chances this year, and we talked about the Cubs, the low light of the show. That'll do it for this week. Next week, we'll try a lot better to keep you informed and maybe a little bit entertained. So for Dell, for Junior, Bill Senior, I'm sure he'll be back. I'm Mike Hammett. We'll see you next week on This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey.